Welcome. We'll get started in just a second. This is ALN Thursday at 3, but we're letting people in before I break all the good news. Well, welcome to another edition of ALN Thursday at 3. Yes, this is ALN Thursday at 3, and it's a very special session because it closes out the end of a long string since 2020 of ALN Thursday at 3s before we take the month of July off, and then we start anew with the new ALN. There are so many wonderful things going on, and it is represented by this amazing presentation by Salus Technology Partners and Tallgrass.ai, Dorina Beebe, and Michael Beal, new members who are demonstrating the way we're going forward. We're going to have more collaborative solution presentations directly from our members, and they will showcase paths forward to leverage current asset management practices and related tools and processes in order to achieve dramatic improvements in your mission outcomes. If you're not interested in dramatic improvements, this is not the place. Incremental isn't doing it. If you do not make dramatic improvements, you're not going to be able to participate in the new ALN, which is showing a global approach to asset management, information distribution, best practice sharing. Our relationships with the United Nations are expanding to economic policy modeling, not capital planning, but regional, like governmental modeling. And this presentation is about a market focused approach, like a stock market, to dispersing, decommissioning your assets. And I was involved in a book called Big BIM, Little BIM, which had a section called Start with the End in Mind. What is your desired outcome? And this presentation is going to show how, if your desired outcome is to maximize value from asset disposition, you can work backwards from there in order to get your strategic asset management plan right, et cetera, et cetera. And the event at the end of May in Washington, D.C., where Dorina and Michael had their debut event with the ALN, is expanding the Asset Management Council from Australia. Wants to, after 5 years, finally establish a formal memorandum of understanding that sets the ground for how we work with them going forward. And United Nations, like I said, has expanded. The Marty Wolin, the ALN Senior Fellow, has connected us to the economic policy model approach, and we will help them model that approach. And anybody else can use the same system to model any other economic approach they want. And the Linux Foundation, we expanded to their trust department. Of course, the Linux Foundation, computer operating software organization, has a high focus on establishing trust over the internet. And when we put the peanut butter of asset management with the chocolate of their trust policies and principles, we've got a Reese's peanut butter cup that everyone will want to eat with. That's why I say this is not incremental, it's transformative. We're going to start showing how to play and win the abundance game instead of playing the zero sum game. And the world is one asset. And if we look at it as an abundance game to win, oh, then you fed everybody in the world before I did. Oh, you win. Good for you. And food, clothing, shelter, healthcare, education, social justice, all of those things. If we deliver those to everyone in the world, first of all, it's good business. you can have a sustainable organization focused on an abundance approach. And um, also, it serves governments really well because governments are people getting together who are basically agreeing we all live here. We've got to stop when it's red and go when it's green, extrapolate that up to the highest level, which leads us to this market intelligence approach to maximizing value from asset disposition, pays attention to these historic rules and market drivers that have proven to humanity as important and valuable to watch. So, sorry for the really long, excited, rambling introduction, but I'm really excited about all of this and so happy to let Dorena get started.
Awesome. So you can see the screen? So
Yes, we
Michael,
can.
okay, wonderful. So Michael, thank you for having both Michael and I on for today and keeping with the theme of asset visibility into asset value, using market intelligence to maximize value from the asset disposition. So what we have a couple slides, and then Michael Beal from Tallgrass AI is going to demonstrate what it looks like in real time to do so. So we're just going to move forward here to talk about asset management in general and the challenges that we see. And we know that in working with organizations, a lot invested heavily in systems to track their assets, right? A lot of them have what is called an IT asset management software system or tracking system that will let you know what you have and where it is. But they still struggle to answer the critical questions about its value and what to do once it's within the environment. So the visibility, what we're going to speak about is the visibility that you have at these tracking systems will tell you what you have. The intelligence that we're going to discuss is going to help organizations decide what to do next, given within the policy. The questions that we're looking to answer: which assets are losing the value, which assets potentially should be recovered, which assets should be recycled in essence or remarketed, and then how are we demonstrating through this process that we are maximizing the value of the disposition and having a record of doing so. So what we recognize in this space oftentimes where we're finding organizations is that they recognize that there is an issue or a problem. Oftentimes it comes in the form of excess equipment or it's obsolete. And what that tells us is that these are delayed decisions. They're finding the problem when it's already there as opposed to addressing it before it happens. So our comment here is knowing what you own through these asset tracking systems is good, but it's not enough if your policy and goal is to maximize the value or to optimize your spend on that particular equipment. What these ITAMs will tell you is what you purchased, which is fine, where they're located, and they might even track it down to it got retired and now recycling, right? What organizations will lose on that value is because they're kind of unmanaged, or once they're in the system and deployed and being used, they kind of get lost track of until a new event, and that is a refresh cycle. And that is when these decisions are delayed. What these ITAM systems cannot tell you, though, is what assets are sitting idle. Are they being used properly or to the extent of its initial use? What assets are declining in value, maybe some at a greater clip than others? What assets should be recovered now because it's the market is indicating it so, and whether the disposition decisions are truly maximizing the value. So with each month of delay, we recognize the market value may decline, recovery opportunities shrink, then because of that, budget dollars remain unavailable, stewardship objectives go unmet. So when we have these delayed decisions, a lot of things kind of fall through the gap. And to what you said, it's no longer about the zero end game. It's not about just making sure we're compliant. It's about keeping compliant and doing more with that to maximize the value, to optimize your spend. And that's the purpose of what we are trying to accomplish by utilizing decision intelligence for your asset disposition. And why we've created, I'm using the acronym here, but the ALGS framework, which is the Asset Lifecycle Governance System. And what that allows, we have three pillars within this framework with one objective, and that is to combine the governance, the market intelligence, and then help validate organizations to make decisions to maximize value and support your objectives. The three pillars are design and control, establish the visibility, governance, accountability across life cycle, optimize and recover, where we're going to discuss a little further here, market analysis, the strategy that best aligns with your policy and what we see out in the field, and then validate, which is the documentation, the stewardship, keeping you compliant, all the above. So for today's demonstration, we are going to use a fictional federal agency with the policy of getting measurable results and maximizing the value of their IT spend. So the policy has established the objective, maximize the value. The market intelligence, what we're going to walk through here, is going to help us determine what that path looks like. So for today's demonstration, we're highlighting of the three pillars, the optimize and recover portion of the ALGS, the Asset Lifecycle Governance System, to help determine the best disposition strategy. The goal is just to help you make the best decisions based on what you have, market conditions, and your policies. So what Michael is going to walk through or show you here in a minute, it really comes down to 3 steps. We have to pull the buyers and gather the buyer intelligence. So we're going to create that buyer pool of agents evaluating the inventory, simultaneously applying their own economics of what it costs to acquire and current demand. That buying pool, that collective buying pool, will then reveal the market intelligence and the value that is prepared to support it. It's not just 1 or 2 or 3 vendors maybe that you're currently using. We now have a pool that is going to provide the intelligence to help then create the decision intelligence, which is a neutral arbiter that Michael will talk you through, that compares the market demand from the buyer pool with what the buyer, I'm sorry, with the seller, with the client needs. So Michael Bordenero, if you are our federal client, you've set what equipment it is and what the policy is. We've got the buyer pool on one side, and then our arbiter comes in between to match what your needs with what's happening. And it's going to do so comparing the demand, the book value, replacement cost, fair market, all those things are going to be placed within consideration. And so on the right, you'll see what we want to go over, the asset value monitoring, the market, the buying agents, the arbiter weighing, all this goes into the fun little solution of let's set it up and let's see how we can win. That said, Michael, I know I just rolled through that to set you up for your demo. Hopefully I did a decent job of giving the high level to those non-techie people to understand how it works and the importance of it and what that means. So at this point, I think it makes sense then for what Michael to go ahead and show his screen
Sure.
and get to work.
You've got to stop sharing first.
Oh, I had to stop. Yep, got it done.
Okay.
And then Michael, I think I made your right version, the co-host, but I've just made both of you co-hosts.
Okay.
Excellent.
Okay. How's that look?
Very good.
Outstanding. All right. Well, thanks again for everyone to really taking interest in this, giving us the opportunity. It's been a lot of fun kind of talking about these ideas, but it's even more fun when we can finally actually get in front of you and actually show you that what isn't theory, this is very real. We've put a lot of love into our agents. They have a persona, and we're going to kind of step into kind of like, we're going to introduce you to the 3 distinct agents, who they are, who they work for, and most importantly, how do they work together. So first, let's kind of set the table. So this is the platform. It's extremely robust. It's very broad. It's very deep. So today we're going to step into a fictitious inventory of the EPA. So again, everything you're looking here is, it may seem very real and compelling, but I promise you, there's nothing real. There are no real numbers here. Okay, all this is fictitious, but we did want to at least put a real, a 3-letter agency up there to help be a little more relatable. So let's kind of step into what we call kind of like the book value. Okay, so right now, if we were going to do an inventory of the EPA, let's say that they're on the books, their assets are worth about $15.2 million. And again,
What assets, as the owner, I've got many different types of assets. What assets are you talking about here?
this would be probably IT. These would
Okay.
be IT. But again, if we really wanted to look across all asset classes, we could absolutely put all asset classes
You
and
could,
then
this works for
segregate.
trains, planes, and automobiles.
Yep, yep.
But this demonstration, that number could be, let's say, one category of iPhones, or are you talking
Sure.
about, what is that 15 million?
Let's really think of about it like as a denominator. Okay, let's think about this as, again, this is the book value. In other words, this is what I am accountable for right now on the books. So there's true economics here. I have to at least, in other words, I'm in for $15.2 million with all of my assets currently right now. All right.
Oh,
So,
okay. This is your total agency inventory.
yep,
Okay,
exactly.
gotcha. All right.
Right. And we'll kind of step in. And so let's say there's 343,000 units. Okay. And again, this is high level. And let's say right now, this could be any kind of IT asset. Okay. So this is the actual unit count. Okay. Across many, many different kind of assets. Right. Stepping over, we have 17 buyers. Okay. And this is really kind of stepping into what Dorina was speaking to is but every one of the buyers, right, gets a distinct agent that they configured for themselves. Okay, and we'll step into what that actually looks like, and that part is actually so, so important. Next, we have something called liquidity. And this is a term that we're going to start using more and more because what we want to do is we want a path to the market, right? Think of it just like any other marketplace. Think like a stock market. If we wanted to liquidate that $15.2 million, currently we could sell all of it in one go for $4.21 million. Okay, so that's not theory. This is what's occurred when you line up 17 distinct buyers and allow them to configure their economics, right? What they would basically put in as like an option to buy across the entire universe. So here, these 17 buyers have 80%, right? Basically options to buy. So 274,000 of the 343,000 have an option to buy between these 17 buyers. Okay, what's interesting about that is notice 20% has no way to market. So that's a really interesting metric that actually it kind of gets naturally pulled out as these independent 17 agents go through the entire inventory and actually look at the economics. All right. So again, we'll step into the agents themselves and how that actually happens, and then more importantly, how these agents interplay. Okay, any questions so far? Just how we kind of set the table from anyone in the room?
I get it now. We're playing the game of I'm the IT manager and I have a lot of Hewlett Packard computers. I've got some iPhones. I've got this and that and the other thing. I've made my inventory public to the market, and 20% of my children are ugly and nobody wants them at all.
Yep. Yep. And
Okay.
again, right now you would basically get 28% basically sell, right? So if we're going to sell 4.21 is 28% of the 15.21. So it is what it is.
Yeah.
But
Right.
again, remember the buyers are going to come in and they're going to try to lowball everything. So then the arbitrary agent comes in with fair market value, right? And says, okay, you're like 30% off. Okay. And then we have to the left, again, we'll step into it and we'll elaborate a little bit more. Right now, as long as everyone's comfortable with how we've set the table, let's go ahead and let's actually fire up the agents themselves. Okay. So right now the agents are coming to life. They're saying, hello world. And one more, very good. And again, these are real agents. This is not fictitious. So let's talk a little bit about the buyer agent. So his job is to work with every single, so when we onboard, in fact, let's go ahead and let's see what that looks like. So here I am. I am a buyer. And as we onboard the buyer, what we want them to do is basically, hey, tell us about yourself. What do you like to buy? What are you good at buying? What are your service lines? right? And they'll give us all of their service lines, what they're really good at, and we're building a profile. And what's happening though is their buyer agent is actually inheriting all of this really good intelligence about what they do. And so if you think about it, it's really buyer policies, it's their economics, okay, and it's their service lines. We really want to know what every buyer does well. Okay, then they put in their economics, and then they can actually put in their secret sauce, their strategy, right? That's secret to them. Next, let's call back in. And let's now look at the seller. Okay, so here we are actually now, this would be the EPA itself. We have all of the various different policies. So if we want to onboard a buyer, right, they're going to be exposed to all of our policy procedures that if we're going to interact with you, these are all of the prerequisites that I need from my buyers. So if you come back into the juicy middle now, really what we have now is the arbiter. So the arbiter it's a matching technology, all it is, right? It's a matching agent, but we're matching on three different pillars. We're matching on policy, we're matching on the economics, and we're also matching on operations, refresh cycles, right? And also the arbiter is very, very good then, especially on the economics of going out into the marketplace and looking at the various different things that are being bid for, where there are options, and compelling people to come to center. It automatically, when it starts looking at various different items, it's going to keep tracking those items. So what does that mean? It's able to look at an item and see that it's appreciating at a very good rate. In other words, the fair market value is shifting. So seller, you really need to know about this trend. So imagine if you have, maybe 200,000 different kinds of items within your organization, it's going to start sorting out the opportunities to the very top. So there's always opportunities. It also looks at the 20% that isn't sellable, and it starts looking at matching, okay, is this a harvest event potentially? Do I have buyers that can actually harvest chips? What about precious metals? Right. So the arbiter is aware of different ways to satisfy opportunities, as long as we have a good buyer base and that we have a good match for those kinds of situations. Where we don't have a good match, the arbiter will actually respond back to the platform. It says, hey, I know there's opportunity here, but we're weak on buyers to do these particular things. So arbiter is a very, very special agent. Okay. Any comments so far, Mike?
First of all, I'm blown away. Second of all, marketing. So what you were just talking about, which of the agents, or do all of them, have an ability to seek out not just the matching, but the establishment of the market? Or is that something the Asset Leadership Network should be thinking about?
So no, it is absolutely. So if you think about it, we have thresholds of policy economics on the left, thresholds of policy and economics on the right. And then you have this weird shifting target of true value that's always ebbing and flowing. What we're doing is number one, we're learning it, we're tracking it, and then eventually we're predicting it as we get into a robust place. Then we can compel policy and economics to actually come together as a match. And where that happens, those policies actually, or those opportunities, get bubbled to the very top. And also understand that I have 17 agents here. Okay. And today we're just going to look at one part. We're going to look at 3,000. I think we're selling off like 3,000 units of RAM. Great. But the agent that gives us the best opportunity, so there's competition between the 17 buying agents. The one that gives us the best opportunity across all the various parts get to post the liquidity here. Right?
Wonderful. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. So let's go ahead now. Let's actually run the simulation. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and let's get forward. So this is basically a timeline. You can see we have our agents here, and what you're going to see is the literal chatter between the agents. Think of it like a log per se. Everything that happens between the agents, it's highly granular, it's highly fast. It happens as fast as market conditions change, or policy conditions change, or economics change, right? Any event from any side will basically cause a kind of like a rebalancing act. So right now we're going to go through a rebalancing event that will actually fast forward into an actual sell. But I definitely want you to kind of pay attention to the chatter down below. And in this frame here, we'll have a good high-level executive summary that kind of distills what's actually happening. And then I'll actually show you the logging that's happening, because I know there's a lot of compliance initiatives. So understand this platform is logging at an extraordinarily low level. So there's chain of custody happening. So we can always take those logs and then point them to compliance that is required. Okay, so let's go ahead, and here we are. First, we have a buyer reviewing. So this is coming from the buying agent at the moment. And here's the deal, right? The buyer AI reviews the available inventory and determines what the assets are worth in the resale market. Seller is asking $13.50. Estimated resale value, $18.75. That's good. So there's some upside. To protect its required profit, so there is some policy sneaking in, the buyer opens with an offer of $10. Okay, so again, a low ball offer.
That's amazing. We
Okay.
just saw history, right? We've created and solved the market right in front of everybody's eyes. This is a great time to take a call from Paul Chabin, who is on the ALN Insurance Asset Leadership Board.
Awesome.
And of course, insurance ties into economics and everything.
Mm-hmm.
The insurance value of these assets might be part of a value that is created or some type of policy that's included. And I've been working with you guys for most of this year. So there are videos of our past events so that people can catch up to where we are at. But what you're presenting today is really mind-blowing, and I've been following you. So to do the slow motion instant replay, Paul, yes, this is not an IT asset management system, but it is.
It is.
Because you're managing the disposition of the assets. However, there is a whole set of policy and expressed interest by leadership for this new type of innovative approach, which, by the way, Art Curlin, who is in the audience, the ALN Senior Fellow. Art, thanks for joining. Art kickstarted his asset management initiative at University Health by realizing increased value from disposed assets. That's how he got their attention. So therefore, this is coming together at a time we've got all the asset management ducks in a row, and now this team is using AI to get the attention of people who need to make these transformational business process decisions.
Yep.
And I'm tracking, and I hope that gave people time to kind of catch up. We don't have to stop at the half hour. I'm having fun, so we're going to keep on going. If people have to drop off at the half hour, thank you. This is recorded, and we can get you the recording.
So I think one of the key dimensions, or what's really different about this, is we simply want to paint a way to market. We want all of the buyers to come in, and we want them to compete and give us an option to go to market. That's all it is, just an option. But if you really think about it, the arbitrary agent works more for the seller than it does for the buyer, because the seller is in charge of his policies, his economics, right, and operations. So it's really those events that drive the sell, the move. But as long as we foster competition along the way, that when we do have to make that move, number one, we have full visibility, and we're at least in the best situation. At the same time, when you truly love your vendors, right, they're going to show up for you in better and with more service lines. We can foster competition. We can see where our service lines are weak, and we can then seek to go out to the market and say, listen, we have all these assets that will be coming to your shores a year from now, and you have no way to dispose of these. there's no way for you guys to really help us with this asset class. Could you please align to this asset class? And then I promise you, it will be available to you, right? So there's a lot of ways to weaponize what you know, and most importantly, what you don't know. And this kind of system shows that very, very quickly. Okay, it does it naturally, right? So let's go ahead. Let's continue to see if we can't sell something. And again, you can see there's lots of traffic that I'm actually skipping over. But here, the seller makes a concession. Okay, so again, this is all happening automatically because we're within the governance of the agent. The agent is told you can play within this bracket. Then after that, you must come to me. I'm the human in the loop that can finally press the trigger to actually sell. But right now, it's allowed to at least play the game, right, with the other agent and try to, get it sold at the same time, hold back and stay within policy. Okay, so the seller reviews the buyer's offer. Rather than rejecting it, the seller lowers the asking price from $13.50 to $12.50. This demonstrates willingness to negotiate while still protecting the seller's recovery goals. Again, policy, gap remaining $2.50. All right, next. Step 4. Buyer responds. The buyer recognizes the seller has moved. And again, these are agents talking to each other within microseconds. All right. The buyer recognizes the seller has moved. It raises its offer from $10 to $11.25. This is the highest price the buyer can pay while still meeting its required profit margin. Policies from the buyer. Finally, seller accepts. Yay, we sold something. The seller understands the buyer has reached its financial limit. Rather than risk the transaction, the seller accepts the buyer final offer. Final price agreed, $11.25. Right, success. And then down below, here's some detailed economics and then all of the wonderful logging, right, for compliance reporting. Okay. All right. So,
okay. So we're at a good point to follow up on yet another engagement from Paul. It is a CPU. It's a set of CPUs that are being shown right now. Is that correct?
this is basically DRAM, about 3,000 units of DRAM. Yeah.
DRAM. All right, cool. So there are a lot of other aspects of this, but in a very short period of time, you have shown how the asset leadership governance system is working already and is ready to go for people to use this software to change the way they dispose of IT assets. But through configuration, it can be planes, trains, automobiles, air handling units on roof that might have Freon or whatever is marketable in an aftermarket.
Any commodity or service, right, that is depreciating or appreciating can be brought to market.
Let's not blow my mind and talk about service, but it blows my mind that you're also able to do this for services. So I live in Chicago, and I have done all kinds of things to keep me in a position to advocate for asset leadership. And at one point, a friend of mine owns a bar down the street, and I was assistant manager basically at a bar down the street. And one of the people who became a bartender was the granddaughter of the gentleman who set up the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. While she was an heiress and did not have to work, she wanted to get out there and work in a bar. I mean, what you're talking about, Chicago Mercantile Exchange creation level of activity here. And it's an honor. I believe it was named the Asset Leadership Governance System before you even knew about the Asset Leadership Network.
Asset life cycle.
Life
but
cycle.
If you call it leadership, Michael, okay, I'm not going to correct you. Okay. Asset life cycle, because if we talk about the 3 pillars, and what Michael we're highlighting the recovery aspect of it, right? But ideally, if we run full circle in all pillars, it's not just the value optimization of disposition, it's going to be value optimization of your entire spend. And we go through an engagement like this to help them with disposition because this is a problem that we see very common, especially within the Fed space. But the goal then would be to take all that insight, and now we know when it's time for refresh to use this information and to guide organizations to purchase smarter, right? Or to use their assets maybe better because now it's not just about disposition, but it could be reuse, it could be
Yep.
redeployment, things of that nature. So
You have started with the end in mind.
correct. I
Absolutely.
mean,
Yep.
and that's where look, in having conversations, that's where we saw the problems. And then I took it to Michael and I said, what can we do? And Michael immediately said, we can help there. But the big picture is the full circle moment of the entire life cycle. So therefore it's asset
Okay.
life
Leadership
cycle,
needs
right?
asset lifecycle governance
It's
system to
life
make better
cycle, but
decisions.
leadership
Yeah.
applies because policy is part of it. And one
Yes.
thing I do want to highlight, that might be the concern, like, well, how do we know that these buyer agents are not bad apples? Well, it's because there will be criteria from the seller standpoint that says we will only utilize those that meet this certain criteria, whether that means it's a particular certification for IT, let's call it R2V3, or
Yep.
let's say it's got NIAD or some of those that can be put in place so that the comfort level is there that we're selling to good apples, right?
So let's wrap
Yep.
up with your slides.
Oh,
If
sure.
if the live portion is over, Michael, is there any more with the live?
Nope.
That was spectacular. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Okay. So just really to kind of close it down, right? We talked about the buyer intelligence aspect of it. What this the can you see because this is on
Yes.
my screen. Okay, because I have okay, there, good. Using that buyer intelligence to create the pool that creates the market intelligence, and then the arbitrator agent becomes the decision intelligence that's doing all that work on behalf of an organization. And we talked about this at the ALN event at the end of April, where what we're finding, is especially within the federal government space, organizations are shrinking. Headcount is shrinking. People are so what that means for those people remaining, the workload is increasing. And so one way we can help those folks that still have to manage this process is to put this in place so that decisions science is easy for them. They're not the ones having to go back and waste time and negotiate this. It's done, set it, forget it. You put the roles in, we'll do all that work. You decide the human go, no go, right? So that's what hopefully we established. Michael did an excellent job on that. So really, when we're talking to organizations, it's about what value is hiding in your environment. How many assets do you have that could potentially be unutilized? Are they losing value? What recoverable value remains in the untapped inventory? One thing that Michael didn't talk about when you said, Michael Bordenero, I have 20 ugly children, they
Right.
might be ugly on the outside, but they still might have a really good heart or a good personality. And by that, we're saying maybe that particular laptop doesn't have the value, but its components do. And so that's where this agents can also start finding buyers for the parts. So that 20% that may not have value based on that criteria doesn't mean that they aren't lovable somewhere. So we can even dive even deeper beyond the whole unit to the parts that still have value. So, and then also, can your organization demonstrate that the decisions have maximized value? Obviously, we've shown through that whole interchange that it can. So, in this, kind of to summarize it, right? You might have an asset management tool in place that gives you visibility to what you have, right? So that would be the accountability aspect of it. But the intelligence is going to enable the action, right? And with the asset life cycle or leadership governance system, helps organizations move from just the visibility to the actual value that we're looking for. And so, with that, we're going to close up, but we want to thank you again, Michael, for having us to have this conversation. And that for anyone that is joining or listening in on maybe even after the fact, if you're taking a look inside and thinking, wow, we might have value that's hidden, we would honor a call or an email and just request an assessment and just have us, take a look under the hood and see if you've got those assets that are underutilized. What is the current market demand? Do I have opportunities to recover these assets? What kind of information or recommendations could you make based on our disposition, and just basically also what that financial impact could look like? So what we know in conclusion is that better stewardship of all your assets, whether it's IT or not, begins with being able to make better decisions. And that happens with the intelligence. So with that.
Well, we're not concluding. Don't even
Okay.
think that this is concluding.
Well,
But thank you for concluding the
I'm
presentation.
concluding my segment.
Okay. Michael, do you want to make any concluding of your segment before we start to have some real fun?
No. I can't add to that. That was epic.
Yeah. Well, together, what you have presented is epic. And I've got to say to everybody that I promised that we were going to be making a paper available for this. But the thing is, this has accelerated so fast. The paper needs to be rewritten because in order for us to get going with these concepts, we kept it simple for ourselves. And I want to be saying this on record because I think this is the repeated process for addressing AI benefits that are transformative.
Yep.
Is you got to start small. And we started small by talking small just about IT assets. And it worked out really well. And I said, well, this doesn't necessarily, this can work for, like I said, planes, trains, automobiles. It can work for everything. And Michael quickly agreed. And so just this week, we decided that the paper is going to be reframed as assets. We got to rewrite it so AI comes out. We'll use an AI demonstration or an IT demonstration because I think the precious metals resonates with people in terms of market, right? That is a direct connection. We know that precious metals get traded and this makes sense there. And so we'll continue on that level to help people be able to keep up to speed with this and then take it, everybody loves something. What you said earlier, Michael, about you got to love your vendors, that's exactly the open or the the abundance game approach, right? Everybody loves doing something. If you love HVAC, let's talk about HVAC. If you love IT, let's talk about IT. This helps in all areas because this is asset life cycle governance, and it's a system. It totally aligns. We could have another presentation where, or we could take the recording of this video and just flash up ISO 55001 numbers that relate to everything that you're talking about at different times. It's so directly correspondent to ISO 55001. It's incredible. That document is so beautiful because it's so simple and fundamental. You got to have policies. You got to have measurements. You've got to have objectives. You've got to have ways of visualizing the data. The other thing you said, Michael, was the transparency of it. An abundance game benefits from transparency. The zero sum game, you got to keep things secret because that's how you're going to get more than the other person.
Yeah, I think one thing that's also interesting, Mike, is the agents that we put in place has a very strict role in how they operate. It's alert, prescribe, comply. So there's always a closed loop. But with that compliance, like when we actually sell something, the agent is actually given credit for, number one, the count. I sold something, great. Or I bought something, great. But they also get credit for the margin. What is the actual performance? So if you think about like day over day over day, maybe we're selling, $100,000 worth of things, right? And we're protecting margin, we're protecting policy, we're in front of the economics. All of that has an inherent value. So what we do is we actually then we accumulate. So we end up getting this beautiful alligator chart, right? And then we can then attest that this agent basically made or saved us $3.2 million in the last year. And as long as that keeps happening, then we know that agent is healthy. Okay. When he stops contributing and things go backwards, the market has shifted, something's changed, something has changed, right? So accountability of the tactical AI agent level is critical and something that we do inherently.
Okay, so now you're accelerating us into the science fiction realm, which is absolutely perfect because that's what we got to be talking about. A global story here that has a lot of people say all at once, well, I was going to do that anyway. And that's how you change. There is no slow change. It just has to happen at once because it makes sense to everyone. So the agents, yep, which are basically intellectual property that you have created and you can create for people who want to set up their policy into their agent.
Yep.
So you assist them in creating this asset of intellectual property, and that asset is managed by having desired results and measured benefits and values.
Three pillars, Mike. Let me throw. So agent needs context. He needs a target, and he needs constraints.
Yep.
Okay. So those three things.
What the other owners of the intellectual property asset with you, because if I understand what you're saying, you're willing to share this, because if the first person comes up with the great policy for getting the DRAM value and that agent keeps on kicking butt, then there is value generated from that and it should be rewarded. So now we say that people are not assets, the experience and knowledge of them, because people as assets are now slaves. So now we're creating an agent, a robot, and giving it value. Can we now not say that this intelligence that we're creating is not an asset? Now we're talking about Isaac Asimov's sanctioned life stuff because it starts thinking on its own. Now that's totally fictional, but that's the level where we're at these days.
Well, these are tactical. So in other words, they're going to start something and they're going to stop something, right? They're not autonomous. Okay. And nor would we want that. They would have conversations and probably get no work done whatsoever.
Well, I'm glad I brought up the absurdist perspective so you could address this, thing that really scares people. So thanks for addressing that.
Yeah. Yep. No, I appreciate those concerns.
Yeah. So this is wonderful. And just the way this is all coming together. So other people in the Asset Leadership Network are developing other open AI approaches through the Linux Foundation. And through this Coalition for Smarter Buildings that we have a memorandum of understanding with, their first thought was to focus on HVAC.
Yeah. Which
energy costs, you run your HVAC better, then you're gonna, but there is the Freon, there are the precious metals in those units, et cetera, et cetera. This is yet another market where this can go. And on October 20th, in the US Green Building Council, which is all about life cycle, we're having an AI event. And we've got so much content, we can't do it all there. So we're also having web programs leading up to it to showcase possibilities in a rapid fire way. And you are now invited to be participating in the US Green Building Council element of certifying that you're doing what you have intended to in the first place, aligning your mission with your disposition of assets. So they're not doing what you're doing, but they're using AI, and it'll be great to introduce you to them and see how you can benefit from how they're setting things up to track it better. Because right now people don't, as you said, don't know what they have. And it's not just IT assets, it's kind of everything. And then once you do know what you have, then it makes dollars and cents to know how you can get greatest value from this position. So things are coming together just spectacularly, which is why I was so excited earlier today at the start of this event, and why I'm even more happier now that I've understood that you're creating the Chicago Mercantile Exchange.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, this is great. Um, so we usually have slides for our ALN patron members, ABS Quality Evaluations, Onuma Inc., and Kahua, but we'll just say it. And all of our other members, including some that we want to introduce you to, which includes Skycentrics and Patty and CDV Systems, etc., the people who are getting the information about all the assets in the first place that will then be able to feed into your system so that there's trusted information to go to market with. And it's coming together beautifully. So thanks to everybody who makes this possible. We will start up again in August. I forget the first Thursday in August, but we will be doing that. And we've got some really spectacular presentations, including a version of the presentation to the U.S. Green Building Council, which we will do through the Asset Leadership Network to make that information publicly available. It was first just a continuing education course for the U.S. Green Building Council, but we can now make it publicly available. And yeah, things are looking really good. Thank you for your organizational membership. We look forward to growing this and making it even more real in the near future. Oh, what's the name of your cat?
Oh, because your cat in the background.
Max.
Maddox. Okay.
That's Max. Max for
Or
striping.
Max, sorry.
Max for striping.
Excellent. Well, thank you all, including Max, for your participation. Thanks to the audience. Everybody have a great July and look forward to more exciting programs starting in August.
Awesome.
Bye for now.
Thank you, Michael. All right.
Thanks, guys. Thanks all.